August 12, 1985, a date that would be etched in the annals of aviation history forever. It was a hot summer day in Japan. The sun blazed down, casting long shadows and making the air shimmer with heat. The cicadas buzzed loudly, a familiar soundtrack to the Japanese summer. Families were getting ready for Obon, a special time to remember their ancestors. Streets were filled with the aroma of traditional foods being prepared, and homes were adorned with lanterns to guide the spirits of the departed. At Tokyo's Haneda Airport, the atmosphere was electric with excitement. Travelers bustled about, checking their tickets and luggage, eager to reach their destinations. Travelers were boarding Japan Airlines Flight 123 to Osaka. The flight was a routine one, a short hop between two major cities, and no one expected anything out of the ordinary. There were businessmen, families going on vacation, and kids excited for the holiday. Each passenger had their own story, their own reason for being on that flight. The Boeing 747, a big, impressive airplane, was ready to go. Ground crew worked diligently, ensuring everything was in order for the flight. No one knew this ordinary day would soon become one of the saddest days in aviation history. The plane taxied to the runway, engines roaring to life, and then it took off, climbing steadily into the sky. The plane took off and flew into the clear blue sky. The view from the windows was breathtaking, with the vast expanse of blue stretching out endlessly. Passengers got comfortable in their seats, not knowing about the hidden danger. They settled in for the short flight, some closing their eyes for a nap, others chatting with their seatmates. They talked, read, or looked out the window, thinking their own thoughts. The cabin was filled with the hum of conversation and the occasional laughter of children. The flight crew, very experienced, did all their checks. Everything seemed normal. The pilots communicated with air traffic control, following the standard procedures. But something terrible was about to happen. Unbeknownst to everyone on board, a critical mechanical failure was lurking, waiting to strike. The serene sky outside belied the impending disaster that would soon unfold. 12 minutes after takeoff, there was a loud boom. The plane shook hard, throwing passengers around. Oxygen masks fell from the ceiling. Everyone was scared as the plane flew out of control. High above the mountains, at 32,000 feet, Flight 123 was in big trouble. A bad repair from 7 years ago had broken. An important part of the plane, the rear pressure bulkhead, burst open. The explosion ripped off part of the tail fin and cut important lines that helped control the plane. Without these lines, the pilots couldn't steer. In the cockpit, Captain Masami Takahama and First Officer Yutaka Sasaki tried everything to control the plane. They were seasoned pilots, each with years of experience, but nothing had prepared them for this. The aircraft was in a dire situation, and every second counted. The tension in the cockpit was palpable as they fought to regain control. Warning lights blinked, alarms rang, and the steering wheel didn't work. The cockpit was filled with a cacophony of sounds, each one signaling a different problem. The control yoke, which should have been their lifeline, was unresponsive. It was as if the plane had a mind of its own, refusing to obey their commands. The plane, now like a bird with broken wings, went up and down and side to side. Turbulence shook the aircraft violently, making it difficult for the pilots to even stay in their seats. The passengers, unaware of the full extent of the crisis, clung to their seats in fear. The plane's erratic movements painted a grim picture of the battle unfolding in the cockpit. Even though it was very scary, the pilots didn't give up. Their training kicked in and they worked with a laser focus, each action deliberate and precise. They knew that panic would only make things worse. Their determination was unwavering, fueled by the responsibility they felt for the lives of everyone on board. They tried to use the engines to steer. With the primary controls failing, they turned to the engines, adjusting the throttle to try and guide the plane. It was a desperate move, but it was their only option. The engines roared as they pushed them to their limits, hoping to coax the plane back on course. They kept talking to air traffic control, staying calm even though everything was going wrong. The radio was their lifeline to the outside world, and they used it to relay their situation and receive guidance. Their voices, though strained, remained steady. They knew that clear communication was crucial in such a critical moment. They knew it was almost impossible, but they kept trying to save everyone on board. The odds were stacked against them, but they refused to give up. Their teamwork and resilience were a testament to their training and their commitment to their passengers. In the face of overwhelming adversity, they continued to fight, hoping against hope for a miracle. The damaged 747 was tossed around by strong winds. The aircraft, already compromised, struggled against the relentless force of nature. The storm was merciless, and the plane's structure groaned under the pressure. It went up, then down, then tilted sharply. Each movement was more violent than the last, making it nearly impossible for the pilots to regain control. The altitude changes were drastic, and the passengers felt every jolt and drop. It was like a terrifying roller coaster for the people inside. The cabin was filled with screams and gasps as the plane lurched unpredictably. Overhead compartments flew open, and luggage tumbled out, adding to the chaos. Passengers knew it was bad and started writing notes to their families. They scribbled heartfelt messages, hoping their words would somehow reach their loved ones. The fear was palpable, and the sense of impending doom was overwhelming. Mothers held their children close, trying to comfort them. They whispered soothing words, though their own hearts were filled with fear. The bond between parent and child was never more evident than in these desperate moments. For 32 long minutes, the pilots fought to control the plane. Their hands gripped the controls tightly, their faces etched with determination and fear. They communicated with ground control, hoping for a miracle, but the situation was dire. For a short time they made it fly straight, giving everyone a little bit of hope. But it wasn't enough. The brief moments of stability were shattered by the next wave of turbulence, and the plane was once again at the mercy of the storm. The damage was too bad. The structural integrity of the plane was compromised beyond repair. The pilots knew they were running out of options, and the passengers braced themselves for the worst. Flight 123 was falling and heading straight for the mountains. The ground loomed closer with each passing second, and the reality of the situation set in. The once mighty aircraft was now in a freefall, and there was no stopping it. At 6:56 p.m., the worst happened. Flight 123 crashed into Mount Osutaka, 100 miles from Tokyo. The crash was so loud, it shook the whole mountain. The plane, now broken into pieces, caught fire. It was a terrible sight. Pieces of the plane were spread everywhere. The mountain will always have the scars of this terrible accident. If you found this video informative, please like, subscribe, and share. As it got dark, rescue helicopters tried to reach the crash site. It was hard to get there because the mountains were so steep. People all over the world heard the news and were very sad. There was a little hope when someone said there might be survivors, but sadly, almost everyone died. Rescue teams found a terrible scene. Out of everyone on board, only 4 people were alive. The crash of Flight 123 shocked everyone who worked in aviation. It's still the worst single-plane crash ever. It showed everyone how dangerous flying can be. After a long investigation, they found out that mistakes were made when the plane was repaired years before. This tragedy made airplane companies change how they build planes, how they fix them, and how they train pilots. The things we learned from Flight 123 are still used today to make flying safer. We remember all the people who died. The people on Flight 123 were more than just passengers. They were fathers, mothers, sons, daughters, friends, and co-workers. They had hopes and dreams, and people who loved them were waiting for them to come home. Their stories ended too soon. We remember the newlyweds, the businessman, the children going to see their grandparents. We remember the crew who tried their best to keep everyone safe. We will always remember them. We will never forget the crash of Japan Airlines Flight 123. It reminds us to be careful, to take responsibility, and to always try to make flying safer. It's a story of a terrible accident, brave pilots, and how strong people can be. Even though it happened a long time ago, we still remember Flight 123. It reminds us that life is precious. We must never forget the people who died, their families, and the important lessons we learned. Let's remember them and work to make the world safer so this never happens again. If you found this story meaningful, please like, subscribe, and share to help keep their memory alive.